envisioned by brilliant minds, born from the passions of thousands strong. One that isn't without risk, but protected from it. Safe from all the worries and secure for what's to come. Because a better future with the greatest empires, the strongest communities, and the happiest families will always be worth having. That's why the bold and the fearless understand that recreating something better takes courage and strength. So together, let's start shaping a better future today. Recreate a braver tomorrow.
Ngayong binabalot tayo ng dilim at pangamba,
sabay-sabay ang pagkatok ng mga tanong na,
kaya pa ba?
saan ba tayo pupunta? May pag-asa pa ba?
Sa gitna ng lahat ng agam-agam, may mga bagay tayong muling natuklasan. Wala palang pagsubok ang makakatalo sa tatag ng ating nagkakaisang puso.
Nananalig, nagmamalasakit, nagbabayanihan,
Nagmamahal sa bayan,
sa kalikasan,
sa kalusugan,
sa pamilya,
at sa kapwa.
kaya anumang pagsubok ang kakaharapin,
Umasang may magandang bukas para sa atin.
at pagkatapos ng lahat ng ito, sama-sama tayong tatayo.
A better future is built by the brave, envisioned by brilliant minds, born from the passions of thousands strong. One that isn't without risk, but protected from it. Safe from all the worries and secure for what's to come. Because a better future with the greatest empires, the strongest communities, and the happiest families will always be worth having. That's why the bold and the fearless understand that recreating something better takes courage and strength. So together, let's start shaping a better future today. Recreate a braver tomorrow.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, mayors, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our final Livable Cities Lab for the year, presented by Livable Cities Philippines and the League of Cities of the Philippines, in partnership with the French Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines and Globe Telecom. I am Subi Suarez, formerly from the Corporate External Relations team of Shell International, and one of the founding members of Livable Cities Philippines. I will be your host and moderator today. Today, more than half of the world's population live in cities. This proportion grew from just 30% in 1950 and is expected to reach around 66% by 2050. Cities, therefore, will remain the center of economic, social, and technological activities. While cities occupy just 3% of the Earth's landmass, they consume as much as 60 to 80% of the world's energy and produce 80% of global GDP. But on the other hand, cities emit at least 70% of our carbon emissions. Effectively addressing these problems will not be easy, but with the increase of digital technologies and innovation, citizens and local chief executives are presented with solutions that can help address these issues. Insights gained from data can be used to plan development, guide timely investments, and aid manage assets, resources, and services effectively throughout and even among cities. Today, we've assembled a great panel of experts to share their knowledge, experience, and examples on how cities can be more intelligent and explore the importance and value of data for cities. Before we begin, let me share a few basic safety reminders for all our guests on this webinar. First, be aware of your surroundings while the webinar is ongoing, in case you need to stop due to an emergency. And second, always be aware and stay safe and practice social distancing if you are out of your home. A few more administrative reminders. Number one, this webinar will be recorded and the link to the recording will be sent to all of you after the session. Questions may be asked through the Q&A box of the Zoom application. I'd like to point out that there is a feature where you can vote for questions by clicking on the thumbs up icon, and that makes the most voted question come up on top of the list of questions. Some of these will be answered directly by our speaker or their staff in the chat box, while other questions may be parked for later to be tackled in the open forum. At the end of the webinar, we invite all of you to please fill up our feedback survey. Your response will help us improve our Livable Cities Lab series. You may also get a certificate of participation by answering the corresponding question in the survey. Also, we'd like to acknowledge the mayors present in this webinar. We've been fortunate to have a lot of mayors join our previous webinars. Today we have 12, and I apologize if we may have missed some that are not in the list. But I will acknowledge, for now, we'll acknowledge 12 mayors. First with Mayor Andrea Inares from Antipolo City, Mayor Lani Revilla from Bacoor City, Mayor Nicolas Yulo from Bago City, Negros Occidental, Mayor Mercedes Gonyi from Bais City, Negros Occidental, Mayor Mercedita Apura from Carcar City in Cebu, Mayor Webster Letargo from Gumaca, Quezon, Mayor Emmanuel Maliksi from Imus, Cavite, Mayor Madeline Alfilor from Iriga, Camarines Sur, Mayor Manuel Saladaga from Mahayag, Zamboanga del Sur, Mayor Rowena Tuazon from Masbate City, Masbate. Mayor Lemuel Meyrick Acosta from Oroquieta City, Misamis Occidental, and Mayor Lourdes Katakis from San Pedro City, Laguna. Welcome, mayors and various officials and staff from different cities around the country. We have around, let me just check, 220 people in our Zoom meeting now. And a few more, I believe, are in our um, Facebook Live broadcast. So welcome, everyone. Thank you all for spending your afternoon with us at the Livable Cities Lab for creating intelligent cities. To start our webinar and to give us the opening remarks, let us welcome Carlo Malana. Carlo is the Chief Information Officer of Globe, the Philippines' largest mobile provider and digital enabler. He is currently responsible for Globe's digital transformation and technology modernization strategy, as well as solutions development and infrastructure services. With over 20 years of telecommunications across the United States, Mexico, and the Philippines, he has led both technology and business organizations in such diverse areas as strategy, program management, merger integration, retail, finance, customer operations, and sales. Carlo earned a double degree in the University of California at Berkeley in mechanical engineering and in material science engineering. And he completed his MBA at the Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. So let us all welcome Carlo. Hello, Carlo.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for such a great introduction. Well, cities are the centers of civilization, where the evolution of mankind's knowledge took place as we went from hunter-gatherers just looking to survive to specialization and the ability to build on the knowledge of past generations to enable us to harness the synergy of the people. Of course, with the good came the consequences as we continued to grow almost infinitely in a finite world. Today, we face the challenge of finding the right path to balance our complex ecosystems. Good afternoon to all the participants. From the list, it looks like we have quite a number of leaders in the public sector, including over a dozen mayors, as well as key representatives from our local government. We also have some technology experts, and of course, all who seek to bring the future to the present. Cities are about connections, connecting many with different needs, and connection is Globe's business. Even in times when we have to be physically apart, we at Globe understand that we need to keep our country connected. 2020 is almost over, and to say we have gone through a lot is an understatement. Volcano eruption, multiple typhoons, and a global pandemic have all been part of the year. Through this, we have to continue to serve our customers with the services and the products they expect and that they need. Technology is an enabler of change, but it is not the reason for the change. As one of Globe's technology leaders, I've seen firsthand the need for the agility to handle waves upon waves of changes. Just like all of you, we've had to quickly react. We were able to pivot quickly to new normals, leveraging our existing capabilities such as cloud-based applications, collaboration tools, and of course, connectivity. It hasn't been perfect, but we are better today than we were yesterday, and we remain agile. All throughout our history, we have been focused on how to further civilization and technology. This is always tied to our growth and progress. We continued to push the envelope of what's possible and how we could generally make things better. It's a continuous evolution for us. Mankind's greatest achievements kept us growing, for better or worse. The automobile and later the planes changed the way we viewed distance, what is near and what is far. Elevators and air conditioning changed the way we built cities. Made things like skyscrapers possible. Industrialization refocused our strengths to centers of trade. The internet and globalization spread power and resources across the globe. Despite the changes, some effects need to be undone. Yet another challenge for mankind and for all of us. The challenge of sustainability arose. How to keep businesses, people, and the planet intact and functioning at its peak? How do we do the damage of industrialization? How do we marry civilization and environmental awareness to sustain us and paint the best future for ourselves and future generations? COVID-19 challenges us yet again. We are once again challenged to innovate and to move forward. Work and study for home became the norm. We all had to contend with the challenge of forging relationships without being face-to-face. Most of all, we are reminded of the most important things in life: family, connections, and ultimately our health and well-being. Focusing on creating intelligent cities, you all will be inspired in this 9th Livable Cities Lab session. Inspired to take action in each of your spheres of influence, in each of your organizations, in each of your communities. Without action, all the insights in the world will not make a difference. First, we'll talk about transport-oriented development as an enabler to livable cities by Christoph Vicic, country head of JLL Philippines and president of CCIFP. We'll then hear Danielle Raleigh, founder and president of Audeo, to talk about rethinking the design of smart and sustainable communities. After which, we'll have the future of intelligent cities from James Lagare, managing director of Geodata Systems, Inc. Finally, we'll talk about harnessing the power of mobile data to transform government strategy from Kevin Harper, Sales and Partnership Manager from DataSpark Analytics Australia. Let's all use this opportunity to learn, to reimagine, to interact with each other, and last of all, to be inspired by our experts. Before I leave, we'd like to show this video as among the examples of what we at Globe are doing to contribute to creating intelligent cities. Thank you very much for the privilege of being part of this event.
Every Filipino home deserves affordable internet, adequate resources, and access to opportunities. This is the driving force behind Kapit Wi-Fi, now called Connect Tayo Wi-Fi. Together with community leaders, Connect Tayo Wi-Fi focuses on areas where communities have the greatest need: education, health, livelihood, giving every student a chance to succeed.
Dahil po sa Connect Tayo Wi-Fi ay di ko na kailangan pang lumabas at pumunta sa mga computer shops para gawin ang aking mga assignments at projects. Lalo na ngayong pandemic, mas nakakatulong ito para sa aming online class.
Enabling convenient access to critical health advice.
Ginagamit ko po ang Connect Tayo Wi-Fi sa pag-update ng mga safety protocols na propose ng City Hall sa social media.
Breaking barriers to help create sustainable livelihoods.
Bilang isang online seller, sobrang importante ang internet at Connect Tayo kasi dito nakadepende ang paggasto sa araw-araw. Kailangan dumiskarte tapos limitado pa ang paggalaw dahil sa pandemic.
Malaki ang tulong ng Connect Tayo Wi-Fi sa akin, lalo na ngayong may COVID. Sa pamamagitan ng internet, nagkaroon ako ng pagkakataon makabenta ng produkto ko. Malaking tulong ito sa amin, lalo na sa pantustos ng pang-araw-araw namin.
Making a difference in the everyday lives of Filipino families and communities with low-cost and reliable internet. Let's get every Filipino home connected. Together, we can make it happen.
Thank you, Carlo. It's a very good point you made that we need to back up technology and innovation with action. So well said, Carlo. And thank you for the opening remarks. Before we introduce our panelists today, we'd like to ask you one question so we can find out where you are all coming from this afternoon. I see we have around 275 people in Zoom, and I am informed that we have about 40 people in FB Live. So welcome everyone and good afternoon. So let me just pop up, ask our friends in the back room to bring up our poll question. We'd like to ask you, where are you joining us from? So we have, it's a multiple choice question. You can answer either Luzon or in particular Metro Manila, Visayas, or Mindanao. So if you could please take out your pointing device and please click into our poll and let us know where you are right now and where you are joining us from. And of course, do click submit so that we can get your answer. All right. And then, all good. Wow, we've got about more than 70% coming in from Luzon and Metro Manila. Good numbers as well from Visayas and Mindanao. Good representation from across the country. So welcome everyone. So we're going to kick off our webinar. We have 4 speakers lined up for you today. Our first presentation will be coming from Krzysztof Vicic. Krzysztof has over 35 years of professional experience in logistics, supply chain, telecom, and management consultancy. His current position is the country head of Jones Lang LaSalle, Philippines, a role wherein he started it in January of 2017. A member of the Fortune 500, JLL Incorporated is a leading professional services firm that specializes in real estate and investment management. JLL shapes the future of real estate for a better world by using the most advanced technology to create rewarding opportunities, amazing spaces, and sustainable real estate solutions for their clients, people, and communities. In January this year, Krzysztof has been appointed the president of the French Chamber and Industry in the Philippines, and is the Consular de Commerce Extérieur de la France, Philippines chapter since August of 2020. Among his prior notable roles, he was International Director Europe for Serva, which is a global moving and relocation service solutions company. Managed the company in Europe, Scandinavia, and former Eastern Europe. Mr. Vicic holds an international executive master's degree from the London Business School, and he is a keen traveler and sportsman. He does golfing, yachting, sailing, and trekking. But more particularly, he's an accomplished runner with more than 15 marathons completed. Wow, well done, Vicic, Mr. Vicic. To present how responsible real estate will drive the future of city living, highlighting the wider role of real estate driving the future of city living, in which data and information are main drivers. Let us please welcome Mr. Krzysztof Vicic.
Thank you very much, Sui. Thank you for this long introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Krzysztof Vicic, country head GLL, but also the French president of the French Chamber in the Philippines. Before I begin, I would like to thank Liveable Cities and Globe Telecom for partnering with the Chamber today for this event, and also a warm welcome, in addition to everyone, to the French Chamber members. The French Chamber, 2 years ago, has launched its infrastructure committee aimed to address business challenges and improve knowledge, especially by sharing best practice, business, government, advocacy best practice. Some of our members have heavily involved in the construction industry, in the real estate, and also in a wider sector. What's really important is that we talk about the livable city, the future of city, and in particular, as a country head for GLL, the future of real estate. I think this is one of the topics that really is close to my heart, and that's why I work for GLL, to the GLL as a global company. We have recently announced that we will commit to a carbon-free by 2030 in all our global real estate premises. And also we have, by end of this year, eradicated single-use plastic in our office. These are two of the commitment that our group has made to contribute to the climate change improvement. That's why this event plays an important role, which embody the goals of the Chamber, my goal and the goal of my company, to develop and create an awareness to really start to resolve tremendous challenges that our today's society has. Now let me take you to my brief presentation, which is about how responsible real estate will drive the future of city living. As already mentioned, 80% of global GDP is generated by city, and the UN is estimating that by 2050, 6.7 billion people will be living in urban areas. I think as a real estate practitioner, we, the industry, have to contribute. The pandemic has created greater awareness of the fragility of our society and our environment. Cities will need to double on measure to create a more sustainable and human-centric world. We are under tremendous pressure, from climate change to socioeconomic and geopolitical unrest, exacerbated recently by the global pandemic. When the UN estimated that 95% of the coronavirus cases were generated by urban area. The real estate, as I said, has an obligation to act now. We are in the middle of it and we can contribute greatly. We also are a great contributor to global carbon emission. 40% of the built environment contribute to carbon emission worldwide. The real estate can play a bigger role by bringing sustainable future, especially in cities hardest hit by coronavirus. GLL has worked the last few months in developing a responsible real estate framework. We have teamed up with Bloomberg Green, which has also launched a separate initiative, which as of today englobe 110 global corporations who have committed with hard target, hard decision to contribute to the climate change. What is responsible real estate? What we have done, we have defined 6 pillars. And I will describe briefly each of the pillars, and also I will talk about the why and the how of these pillars. These 6 pillars are, it's about eco-healing, it's about human, inclusive, authentic, augmented, and resilience. Let me start with the eco-healing. Cities are at the heart of climate change. Over 2/3 of the world energy is consumed by real estate, and we're producing 70% of global CO2. We need to play a role in promoting nature-based solutions to replenish resources and to deploy clean energy strategies. Why? Well, as I said already, 40% of carbon emission comes from building and construction, but there is an additional 28% coming from operating our building, our home, our office, our industrial site. And the how is we need to use more circular economy material and improve sustainability. The second pillar is about human. Definitely the pandemic has accelerated the need for healthy buildings that are designed and equipped to enhance health, promote mental and physical well-being. And why? Research from Harvard Chan School of Public Health shows that 26% higher cognitive function score a high-performing ratio in green building versus non-certified green building. Staggering, 26%. And the how, it's about optimizing, monitoring indoor condition, air quality, obviously, filtration, lighting, temperature. It's about the well-being of the human, be residential again, office, school, everything which has to do with real estate, brick and mortar. The third pillar is about inclusive. Real change in real estate industry needs companies and senior leadership to commit to prioritize equity and inclusion in recruiting and attracting talent, building community and culture through transformative urban projects. This is the key. We need everybody's input. We are a global society. We need inclusivity in our real estate. And why? Well, there is definitely a shift with a global movement for social justice. And also this movement has underscored the importance of understanding and refraining bias for certain part of our human people. And this is critical. How? We need to enhance accessibility, create gender-neutral solution in the built environment, and ensuring supplier diversity in everything we build at a certain stage in the future. Authentic, fourth pillar, expanding the role of the built environment from one that provides shelter, basic, to one that provides a genuine sense of belonging. We all talk about the millennials. The millennials want to sense the belonging, not only have a nice chair, desk, office to work in and collaborate. The why, today we have more and more employees choosing the real estate and the location where they want to work. This is critical for understanding the future trend. And the how, we need a holistic approach which takes social, physical, environmental view on urban revival and living. And also we should at any cost preserve heritage and landmark site. The fifth pillar is Augmented. This is all about digital technology, data, Internet of Things, Globe presentation covering, and I'm sure we'll talk more. We need to use technology, the digital world, the internet world, to enable better management and operation of our places and reduce the use of energy and the use of material. The why, according to a GLL Smart Building Technology research, by driving greater efficiency, we help deliver greener and net zero carbon building. And it's going to be critical to reduce the overall consumption. The how, we need to adopt everything that technology can offer. Sensor to reduce light consumption. No need to have the AC working when part of the building is not used. We need to optimize also the utilization of building to optimize the utilization of technology and ultimately reduce waste as well. The sixth pillar is resilience. This is about having a two-pronged approach on protecting our people. It's about the physical protection. Also, it's about preserving our businesses from financial, regulatory, and other systemic risks. The why, we have seen the pandemic has drastically increased this risk, but also, and the Philippines is unfortunately one of the prime candidates, the extreme weather events. I cannot recall what I read recently, how many depression, tropical storm, typhoon we had this year, in addition to a pandemic year. And this creates additional pressure on our cities. How we need to be better prepared, better informed, and also better with our business continuity planning to allow our business to continue working during this difficult time. And as a conclusion of our 6-pillar study, we need good governance. This study, the research, it's all relying on a responsible real estate platform, but it has to have governance and measurements. We need to know where we're going, how fast we're going, and ultimately the real estate industry should have the opportunity and the accountability to contribute to a greater future with respect of the climate. And the major business will need to look at it. It's not only us, the real estate practitioner, but it's our client, it's our government, and it's ultimately our cities. Which means this is my brief covering of how responsible real estate can improve the future of city living. It's a bit fast, we have much more on our website, but this is what I wanted to talk to you about today. Suisse, thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you, Christophe. Well said. I think it also connects very well with Carlos said, that we need to back up a lot of the things that the opportunities that are presented to the real estate industry. Like you mentioned, that it's really in the center of the opportunities and challenges of urbanization. So urban development, nature-based solution, energy efficiency, all the way to equity and inclusiveness. So thank you for that great brief, but very fact-filled presentation, Christophe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to our next presenter. Before I introduce our next speaker, I'd like to remind everyone that please continue to put forth your questions in the Q&A box, chat box of Zoom. Also, we're live on Facebook, so you can also ask your questions there, and we can take them up either later, or I know that, for example, Carlo has already responded to one of the questions in the Q&A chat box. So thank you for that. Please keep on sending your questions and comments in the Q&A and Q&A portion of Zoom and in Facebook. So now we're on to our next speaker. I'd like to introduce Danielle Raleigh. So Danielle is a young entrepreneur focused on social impact and innovation. She has experience working with underserved communities to implement community health programs and policies throughout San Diego and California. Additionally, through volunteer work and with her mother previously being an architect and designer, she was able to gain more of an interest in the affordable housing industry. These experiences led her to develop a passion in building sustainable communities to fight climate change and provide proper housing to underserved people. She eventually took a trip to the Philippines where she visited Tondo in Manila, and it was this experience that held her to the decision of moving back to the Philippines. So Danielle is the founder and president of Audeo, which is a social business focused on introducing an innovative construction technology that can help solve the affordable housing and plastic pollution crisis in the Philippines. However, there is more to Audeo than this building technology. So Danielle will explain how their approach can lead to the development of self-sustaining and intelligent communities. So to discuss her presentation entitled Rethinking the Design of Smart and Sustainable Communities, let us all welcome Danielle Raleigh. Hello, Danielle. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, thanks,
Welcome.
Louis. Thank you so much.
Okay, on to you. Go ahead.
All right, great. So yeah, let me go ahead. Well, first off, hello everyone. I'm Danielle Raleigh, the president of Audeo. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you guys. All right. Okay, let me just minimize this. Okay, so as Sui mentioned, Audeo itself, we're actually going to talk today about our technology, but even more so, the specific approach we have in order to rethink the design of smart and sustainable communities. So again, I'm going to give just a quick background, even though you heard my little introduction. But just so you know, I am Filipino American. Both my parents are originally from the Philippines, but I am born and raised in California. So in California, my background is actually in public health. So I worked with the University of California, San Diego, in order to implement community health programs and policy interventions in any underserved communities. And also on top of that, I got more involved with this nonprofit that focused on affordable housing, economic sufficiency, as well as sustainable living. So kind of with all of that background, that's pretty much what led me to eventually create Audeo and move back to the Philippines. So what is Audeo, right? Well, we're really here to revolutionize the housing industry while reducing the plastic footprint here in the Philippines. And how we plan to do this is we're introducing a technology originally from Colombia. It's called Blockplast, and it's essentially a Lego-like construction system that's composed of 90% upcycled plastic. So certain plastics such as electronic waste, styrofoam, plastic bags, soap detergent bottles, typically plastics that's harder to reuse and recycle. We could source that from the landfill, take it to the facility, and in turn, we create those different bricks, columns, everything part of the building system. And just so you guys know, although these are already being used throughout South America and different countries, we are just introducing it now to the Philippines. So at the moment, if you're wondering what's our timeline, we're focused more on the partnerships as well as building our pilot model with our champion community. And then afterwards, of course, we focus on getting accreditation and actually building a local manufacturing facility here in the Philippines. That way we could actually use the X amount of plastic raw materials over here, as well as locally producing it to make sure we have green jobs available for the people. So a little bit more on the technology. So just this picture itself. So it's about a 50 square meter single story unit. With just 4 workers, we could actually build the structural framework itself. So the shell of the house within 4 days time. And this itself, it takes about 7 tons of upcycled plastic. We could reduce labor costs by up to 50%, as well as lead time cutting down to 80%. And I won't go over all of these qualities, but I just wanted to highlight them here on this screen, just to say that these are tested in Colombia to withstand typhoons, earthquakes, and it is flame retardant. Also very well thermoacoustic. So for example, in Colombia, it was recorded to be a high temperature of 42 degrees outside internally. So inside the home without air condition, fans, it was recorded to be 27 degrees. So you could see that this is actually also very energy efficient when we're talking about sustainable communities, sustainable living. So let's move forward. So these are just some past projects done in South America. All the pictures that you're going to see here are showing the bricks in its most purest raw form in itself. So we can also include different types of construction materials. We don't have to use just the plastics technology. For the picture on the left, it's a 2-story where we could actually use structural steel I-beam. We have a school campus on the left, and then the right, just to show you more that you could use additional construction materials or more eco-friendly materials to add on to it. And it's a brick, right? So essentially you could use it for perimeter walls, community facilities, warehouses, any type of project really that you would normally use with a brick. And these last pictures just to show you that you can mount your TVs, cabinets, You could plaster, skim coat, paint on it if you want to. It's not necessary, but that's definitely an option for you guys if you want it. All right, so that is the technology itself that we're introducing here in the Philippines. Now I want to get more so into the approach that we're trying to do. So our goal, our real advocacy for Audeo is developing self-sustaining ecosystems. And how we do that is using community-based approach. And what I mean by that is actually getting the residents or citizens involved in that city, municipality, small community involved in the project, all the way from pre-planning stage to the implementation stage. And throughout that time, of course, they're going to be part of the process. The goal is after implementation, the community itself will be sustainable enough where we no longer need to provide as much assistance to them. So it's a very big project for us. And we kind of came across this recognition of, at first, we're just focused on housing. But as we talk more with these communities, talking with different developers, urban planners, it's a lot more to that. You can't just build a house and call it a day. In order to create this sustainable community, you need to be able to surround the premium quality housing with a lot more, such as livelihood, food security, sustainable energy, all the different fundamentals of a community, access to social services, healthcare, what have you. And how we do this, it's not all done just through Audeo. We actually try to partner with the right organizations that can provide us support for these different types of initiatives. So I kind of just wanted to highlight this. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have heard about this, the 20-minute neighborhood, the 15-minute city. So what this is, the 15-minute city, I believe it's envisioned in Paris, France, but I believe we could still use the same concept in even smaller communities, municipalities, urban poor, rural poor areas. Essentially, it's a community where everything is, walking distance, right? Everything that you need in your own community, you're able to access it without the need to travel at a far length of distance. So you have access to, for example, food markets, community gardens, schools, affordable housing options, all of these different services you'll be able to have access to. And we're trying to implement this into the champion community that we have, which I'll go more into. And again, I talked about the different partnerships. It's not just Audeo, it's a very multi-actor approach on how we do this. So what we did is we actually developed a coalition. And this was something in response to the pandemic itself. In August, we created a coalition of different professionals, such as people from urban planners, architects, as well as people in the ICT industry, nonprofit, just to collect, different fields of expertise. We essentially put our heads together and we focus on how can we create this new self-sustaining ecosystem to not just fight the disease, but really focus on sustainability and intelligence in our communities. So I talked earlier that we have a champion community. It's located in Rodriguez, Rizal. It's what's great about this, it's led by a homeowners association. They do own this land itself. So this gives us leeway on trying to implement and assist them on all the projects we can give. So just to kind of give you some knowledge of this area, if you're not really familiar, it's in Rodriguez, Rizal. You have to pass by the Payatas area, or kind of known as the landfill, where the scavengers are, and it's more in the mountainous range. So it's very surrounded by nature itself. But of course, all of this, it doesn't, in my opinion, it can't happen without establishing the fundamentals, which I believe is data and very related to this webinar itself. I think from maybe a regular person view, a common misconception is that smart cities are all about, maybe being app driven. There's fintech. It's only for developed cities such as maybe Bonifacio Global City or even Clark. But yes, although these are components that kind of create a smart city, the real driver is data. And it doesn't really matter how small, how big, if it's developed or if it's starting to become developed. It doesn't matter essentially how the community is. We could still prioritize data around it. And for you guys to know, because we're in the early stages of working with the community, this is actually the perfect time to be introducing smart methodologies such as mapping and GIS technology, which I'll get into more, and actually use this for a basis of development. So another background is that we were given their own site development plans, right, from the early 2000s. This is their most recent plans, and that's pretty much all we're working with. There's no extra data that's available. This is what we have. So we believe that in order for us to adjust and development the site plans that are most beneficial from the community, is we actually could use GIS technology to map out the area, and it gives us the ability to run, a variety of queries, analytics from the GIS data, and it helps us, evaluate how can we construct the right buildings around the existing infrastructure that they have. How can we use this as a source to spot the opportunities for improving resource use? So, for example, where can we place the best sustainable energy? For example, solar panels. So GIS data or GIS mapping is something that can actually help us establish this smart community. And these are essentially the steps that we're kind of following, right, in order to be helping this community become smart or intelligent. And this was taken from the Government Loop website. So these steps you see, you could actually find this on their website, and these are actually what we're pretty much following. So number one, organizing data. In our case, there's not really a centralized or open data available for the community. It's not mapped out yet. So again, I said the last plans we got were in the early 2000s, so that's what we're working from, and we're really starting from ground zero. So how we do this, our job now is to, one, collect any data from the homeowners association, two, analyze the plans that were given to us, three, finalize the organizations that can actually be a part of this project, whether it be in the initial phase or even going to phase 2, phase 3. Really map that out, because that will help us establish how we could optimally use GIS technology. Two, create operational efficiency. Again, we're starting from ground zero. So GIS mapping is essentially opening these doors for us, for the community itself. Three, can't stress this enough, engage citizens. It's really important if you're working with a community, no matter how big or small, is to understand what problems, what obstacles they're going through, what's their vision for the community within the next 5-10 years. And then who are the champion leaders? Who can you continuously talk with? How much time can they volunteer? What skills they have? What tools are available to them? So you're looking at cell phones, for example, which leads to number 4, have the right mobile strategy. So once you're able to define, what's available for them, you could identify the strategy that's needed on the field in order to collect all of this data. And from there, we could start creating a plan and a schedule with the volunteers on how we could accomplish the mapping and collect the right data. Because one of the organizations that we're kind of in talks with and helping us with the mapping, we could actually use just regular cell phones, Samsung cell phones. In the beginning, we don't actually need internet available if the internet is fluctuating in their area. But we can have volunteers, since they know their area best. They could actually map out what facilities are available. They know the terrain the best, right? And then, of course, from this, make data-driven decisions. So we collectively use this data in order to make the right decisions on how we can create itself the optimal site development plans for the community. So again, this is not accomplished with just one organization, not just accomplished by Audeo. It's a multi-actor approach where we gather a lot of different organizations and leaders to be a part of this. And lastly, kind of going back to our technology itself, the bricks, I wanted to give you guys this impact. Something to think about. If we use the 81% of Philippines mismanaged plastic waste, so that's 5,589 tons per day, then we could erase the 3 million unit socialized housing deficit within 7 years. So these are really big numbers, but very much something to think about as we try to introduce Audeo here in the Philippines. So again, I'd like to thank you all for listening to my presentation. Feel free to email me on my, there on the screen. We're on Facebook, so feel free to follow us on social media as well as our website. All right, thank you everyone. I'll give you the mic, Sui.
Thank you. Good presentation, Danielle. You must notice there's quite a number of questions in the Q&A box addressed to you. So I leave that to you to answer. Good presentation. Good point that you mentioned about that very striking point on the potential of harnessing the waste plastic from the country. As in many projects, in the proximity to the feedstock for your project is really important. Otherwise, if it gets too far, it becomes uneconomical, right? You create even more waste or more carbon or use more energy. So there could be merit to that. And wonderful that you connected how it's important to back up community development with data, right?
Yes.
And a lot of that is through GIS. So thank you, Danielle.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. So hang on, we'll bring you back later for the open forum. I have two pieces of announcements, ladies and gentlemen. First is that the copy of the presentations will be made available to you. So that answers a lot of the questions in the Q&A. Second, the video recording of this webinar will also be made available to you. So those are just two pieces of an announcement. Good afternoon to the more than 350, I think about 350 people have joined the webinar this afternoon. Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. And thank you for spending your afternoon with us. Danielle touched a lot about the use of data and GIS. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, who's actually an expert in this. And his name is Mr. James Lagare. So James acquired his bachelor's degree in geography from the University of the Philippines in Diliman. He previously served as a lecturer in the UP and covers Geographic Information System, yung tinatawag natin GIS, for the social services. He is an expert in geospatial technologies with more than 20 years of experience in implementing this technology in various industries around the country. James is the Managing Director of Geodata Systems, the premier provider of smart mapping and spatial analytics solutions in the Philippines, where he leads the effort towards providing intelligent mapping and spatial analytics solutions. Geodata Systems has been in the business for 29 years, focusing on Geographic Information Systems, or GIS. To discuss intelligent cities, why location should be at the forefront, let us welcome James Lagare. James, welcome.
Thank you, Sui. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good. On to you, James.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, everyone, can you see my screen? All right. Can everyone see my screen? Sorry.
Yes, James.
Okay. Okay, so good afternoon. My name is James Lagare, and I'm here to present why location should be at the forefront. So we already introduced our company. Just to emphasize, we've been in the business for 29 years, implementing ArcGIS by Esri across the different groups nationwide, different various groups. So we provide not only the software licenses and subscription, but also the data services, training and technical support, as well as implementation services as needed. At this point, Sorry, I think the video got cut off. Okay, so moving forward, the video actually shows 4 technology tenets of an intelligent city. So that's planning and engineering, which deals with urban and community design, operational efficiency, which deals with good government services, implementing good government services, data-driven decisions or performance, which deals with data and analytics, and eventually civil inclusion. So the previous presentation by Audeo actually touched some of this because basically in a GIS implementing for an intelligent city, these are actually the pillars of an intelligent city. GIS is actually a foundational system for intelligent cities. So questions here like, what facilities do I need to provide for the city is actually in the scope of planning and engineering. How can I get greater awareness of the public, and how can I more effectively engage with city residents and citizens are actually part of civic engagement. How I can understand where the congestion is part of the data-driven decision, and for operational efficiency, questions like what can I do to make the city run more efficiently are addressed. When we talk about location for a GIS, it is not just the location of assets, but also looking at the patterns and trends across the city. So the GIS actually provides 3 key systems in an intelligent city. When we talk about managing our data and integrating it, we're talking about a system of record. When we deal with the actual data exploration, doing the analysis, running our workflows and models, we're actually talking about system of insight. When we're talking about sharing what the trends are, the analysis, and even interacting with the rest of the community, we're covering a system of engagement. So all these systems actually tap into the power of location, leveraging into the location, and effectively implementing the systems within the intelligent city. So how does it work? Okay, so GIS across the city, when we talk about systems of record, each department would have their own layers, information, workflows. The water department will actually maintain the pipes, where the meters are, which areas have high water pressure, which areas need more improvement. And it's the same with telecoms, where in some areas may have weaker signals than the others. So each of this agency or department will have their own focus based on their mandate, and then they maintain those databases, and they explore and they improve the workflows. Now, when they operate in a distributed collaboration, this would mean that there's a central the city government can actually tap into all these databases, these workflows, and then they can collaborate. So each can maintain, update, and create their own applications specific to their mandates. But at the end of it, there's actually collaboration, and all this information from different agencies or departments can actually be used as a whole by the city. So the organization is actually not just the city itself, but we are looking at collaboration with other cities, the province, and other agencies as well. So this is actually the essence of an intelligent city, where they not only function effectively as a city, but also in collaboration with other entities. At the back of this setup or this architecture, there's actually lots of components in terms of the technology. So what enables us to share information, build up the database, maintain it, explore it, collect the data from the field, collect it from other sources, are provided by the different Arcgis solutions. So these solutions actually run at the back end, it depends on how we are implementing it and how we are disseminating the information with the rest of the community. So these Arcgis solutions are industry-specific applications, maps, and tools, which extend our capability from the basic capability to a more focused one, depending on the industry. So if we're talking about utilities and telecommunications, we can actually locate on the map all these towers and how we are providing services across the city. So same with emergency management and public safety. So looking at the patterns in terms of crime, getting information in terms of facilities. And these solutions are ready to deploy, running into our in our machines, in our computers, in our tablets, in our smartphones. Now, this is implemented through collaboration with the users. So you can, within the city, you can implement it, but also in collaboration with other entities. Now, extending these solutions, there are actually ready-to-use technologies as well that supplement the geographic information system. So we have the hub, okay, which is really for community engagement. So this is like a web-based application or dashboard wherein we can access different types of information shared by different entities across within the city and also other cities as well. Indoors is another intelligent solution which focuses on spaces, people, and assets within buildings. So it's like a analysis within the floors of the building, and also the layout of the building and other types of applications where you can go from one point to another, finding out the available rooms within the building and things like that. And then we have the urban, which is focused on planning and development. So this deals with actually the planning and engineering part, wherein you can manipulate the 3D analysis of the building visualization. So this works with the enterprise GIS. Now, the 5 core GIS capabilities of intelligent cities are actually just the same as the 4 tenets or the 4 pillars. So we have planning and design, which is actually engineering, planning and engineering, analytics, system of engagement, deals with civic engagement, and then community engagement, and then the analysis, the data-driven decision making deals with analytics and operational efficiency as well. Now, one thing to note here is real-time GIS uses Internet of Things, okay, through real-time GIS. So from a basic GIS to an advanced one, we can actually tap into the Internet of Things so that we can use sensors in our buses, even in our CCTV cameras all over the city, to tap into that technology where we can easily and more efficiently take in information as it occurs real time. Now, it doesn't have to be advanced capability right away. GIS is scalable, so we can start with an initial operating capability. In the recent times, we've been bombarded by typhoons, earthquakes, and of course, COVID-19. This actually brought that opportunity to come together to share information, to share data sets, come up with hubs wherein programs, disaster response programs are there, sharing applications across different cities, provinces, and even the whole country. Usually, it starts off like this because there's a need to respond to a particular disaster. But we have to take note that in an intelligent city environment, we have to be proactive rather than just respond to disasters. So, but again, we can start off with this and move to more integration. So if we have locations of essential establishments on a district within our city, we can start with that. This is not just about the location of those facilities, but also the information behind those facilities. So as we extend that capability of the GIS, scaling it up, we can integrate information so we can derive analysis, create charts, putting it in a dashboard and combining it with videos and pictures as well to supplement what is already there as available information. Now, for the next step or the future setup for intelligent cities, we know that we start off in different levels. We start off with the basic ones. Some of us haven't really started with the GIS yet, but again, GIS is capable, and looking forward into the future, we are looking at real-time analytics, integrating Internet of Things and sensor networks, real-time visualization, or even going back historically, what the land use is in our city and what will be the future setup. We can tap into artificial intelligence wherein we make use of workflows where we can easily derive which parts of the city roads need maintenance. So if there are cracks already, when we see patterns or when we study patterns or analyze patterns in terms of traffic within the roads of our cities, we can actually run artificial intelligence workflows so we can derive information from that. Better urban planning and design using 3D analysis, visualization, and also engaging with the rest of the city through civic participation, community engagement, and civic participation. This is not just one-sided where we disseminate information, but we also place that capability wherein they can provide feedback as well and provide actually and be part of the solution to the real problems that we face. And then in the future, we can also have like autonomous mobility, wherein we can integrate drones or self-driving vehicles within our city. Now, I end with that, and just to note that in every implementation of GIS in an intelligent city, it is not just about the technology, but how we use technology and data to serve the community and maintaining the infrastructure, the environment in implementing the four pillars of an intelligent city. So with that, I end my presentation. Thank you very much, and connect with us to our LinkedIn, Facebook, our website, and our email.
Great. Thank you, James. Yes, and for those who have interest in this, please you can take note of those contact details that James put in his final slide. Great presentation. I think it's good. I really connect your presentation, James, with not just with what Daniel said, how the data needs to be used. What you said is data-driven decisions. It's really important in planning new communities. But I think I connected back more to the presentation of Christoph. His pillars about how real estate is in the center of a lot of these opportunities. Things like greater public engagement, inclusion or inclusivity. Definitely measurement and governance is enabled through GIS. Also, the opportunity to have multi-sector, cross-silo connection and coordination or collaboration. That's really, we need the data and the connection to make that happen. And of course, with so much information, there's a great opportunity for energy efficiency and also capital efficiency. How cities can be better enabled to make the investments wisely. Great, James. Thank you for that presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, and feel free to answer. There's some questions in the Q&A box. Maraming salamat sa mga nagtatanong. Please continue to put your questions in the Q&A box. Again, I remind you that the presentation and the recording will be made available to the participants after this session. So let's see. We come to our next speaker. I would like to introduce Kevin Harper. So Kevin is the Sales and Partnership Manager of DataSpark Analytics Australia. So DataSpark, it delivers mobility-focused data products in partnership with telcos across Australia and the Southeast Asia region. They help various commercial and government entities serve their customers and constituents better through their mobility genome framework, mobility intelligence reports, and various data science consulting projects. So Kevin has been helping develop a new market for ethical and privacy-focused big data analytics using data science and a robust network of infrastructure to help drive data-driven strategy planning and cutting-edge digital transformation of organizations around the world. To present his talk about harnessing the power of mobile data to transform government strategy and the narrative around how various government units can use insights from mobile data to plan out and deliver key initiatives. Let us all welcome Kevin. Hello, Kevin. Good afternoon.
Hello, Tui. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, on to you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to speak to this esteemed panel and guests from across the Philippines and elsewhere. I'm joining you from sunny Australia actually right now, and I apologize in advance if the noise in the background bothers anyone. It's but the lights just shut off on me 2 minutes ago, so I've had to go outside. So I'm at the mercy of the birds actually in terms of the audio quality, but we'll see how we go. I'm here today to talk to you about the use of mobile data in transforming government strategy, whether it's down to the local government or all the way up to national government. There is a very strong need in today's economy, and specifically when you're talking about health and safety in these new times. The data, as James had just spoken about, is in the utmost importance in terms of not only having enough data to be able to plan for disasters or emergency responses or health responses, but also looking at investment, understanding where to place new business, understanding how things used to happen and where we can predict things to get back to, or really understanding what the new normal is. To be able to understand all of those metrics, there's a vast amount of data that's needed, and quite regularly, it's very difficult to obtain any meaningful data as a first challenge. But second of all, understanding that data is really crucial in terms of making actionable insights and being able to understand the value of that impact as you start to make infrastructure decisions, or to understand health responses and how effective they were and what to do next, even in a strategic approach, looking 5 years or more down the road. So to be able to prove some of those use cases, data is immensely important. And really the main source of most of that data, as James was mentioning as well, quite a lot of that is really generated from one of these in your pocket. Now, if you've got one of those, and quite a lot do in the Philippines, what that device basically is doing is looking constantly for the best possible connection to make, so that you have the best experience as a mobile phone holder, so that it can understand not only where the tower is, but where other towers are. And the tower also says how many devices are on it and where to best place that particular call or that particular email that's being sent, etc. So by doing that at a very high level, understanding the operational data can really be of benefit to local government and other forms of government as well, to really start to manage government better. Where it comes to maximizing public benefit, when you're talking about transport and infrastructure, understanding even just generalized travel patterns when a disaster hits, or even just a day-to-day kind of approach, understanding how to plan for a better transit system, for example, or a new road or a new bridge. Those are obviously very expensive endeavors and can definitely be challenging at times to gather enough data. Typically, most of those data or most of those decisions are built on experience for a large part, generalized comments from the citizens, but again, some travel surveys and other surveys just asking spot checks on certain days, or even just people on the side of the road counting vehicles as well. So traditional methodology has been used for quite a long time, but really understanding and taking advantage of this new form of data that can really look at a realistic view of most citizens across a country, we can start to look at things like better transit planning and better infrastructure decisioning as well. When you're also looking at a post-COVID economic recovery strategy, the way that people have moved or really not moved for quite a few months over this year is really crucial to understand pretty much everything that a government would be needing to help with, but particularly with economic recovery. What we're starting to see in the data in Australia here, and I have heard from colleagues around the world that it is very similar as well, that in terms of movement and even spend patterns, typically the trips that used to go into the downtowns or the central business districts across the world, the trips are very, very, very reduced. They're starting to climb week on week, but certainly the new pattern of if that ability is there to be able to work from home or to be able to have a conference like this virtually, is really changing the way that people are moving and also spending. So in terms of the trip to the store, might not be the grocery store on your way home from work. Now it's coming a bit more local. Or online as well. So understanding the new micro economies across the entire nation can really support economic growth, predicting things like GDP growth, and really understanding the patterns that can help with new business plans down to an individual entrepreneur, all the way to a strategy for expansion in a retail world or any vertical really that's looking to do things like this. Understanding infrastructure, as I mentioned, is really crucial into where things should go, how much investment should be put into a certain area. Is this a problem in the first place? Is quite a lot of questions that usually come through our world, and really supporting some of the research to build a business case or potentially even to disprove one can certainly save millions of dollars, or if not more, but can also enhance revenues. And even talking about real estate from Christoph at the beginning, understanding where to invest in new infrastructure and new real estate on a predictive model to understand, is this going to be the right area to put our specific building? That is something that we will be able to help with it at a certain level. Bringing it to tourism, understanding that tourism is a fairly major economy for the Philippines when borders reopen, obviously. But having said that, looking at tourism events, recreational areas for the citizens across the country, but especially for new visitors that are coming to a certain different city or from out of country. Understanding the value of tourism is really a powerful story that is very difficult to tell typically. You're usually looking at surveys again and understanding how much did people spend, if you can even get them to answer that question as they're passing you by in a busy airport. But really valuing what the dollar figure is of visitors can be profound and can really change the conversation quite often in terms of what do we do, especially in a post-COVID in economic sense. In terms of how to re-enable events, how to build new community infrastructure for the citizens to benefit from. Where do we advertise even to come to the Philippines? And where are people coming from now? So looking at it from an overall global view, understanding the metrics of what's working and what's not working on a tourism and visitation sense can save quite a lot of money, but also bring more visitors that are almost similar to a digital way of advertising, where we're starting to look at kind of a virtual conversion rate, if you will, in terms of where did our ads work if somebody's advertised from Canada, for example, to come to the Philippines, how many Canadians went to the Philippines is something that our data could show. Finally, and obviously the most important right now, just based on the last few weeks that the Philippines has had, powering health and safety initiatives to help save lives is a crucial element to data, and particularly one that mobile data can help solve to a large degree. As with all of the understanding of where people are moving and where they work and where they live in a privacy-centric world, we can start to look at it from a public safety perspective as a disaster has happened or is happening. Understanding how many people are in a specific infected or affected area can have a massive impact in terms of how many emergency workers do we predict will need to be sent? How do we clear roadways to get people out of certain areas? Understanding orders to come back to an area once things have been worked on for the most part and power restored, etc. Even understanding the changing metrics of how to bring people back to a region is a really interesting and important thing to look at when it comes to government of all levels. Certainly with COVID as well, understanding things like where potential hot zones are and where the people that were in those hot zones went and where those new cohorts of people met with other cohorts of people. To really model out that level of understanding of where to place clinics, for example, or where to encourage new testing sites or even testing door to door if that's an option as well. So certainly the highlight of this slide and certainly of my presentation is big data, particularly for mobile data, really has a profound impact on the lives of all citizens of every country that takes advantage of this type of technology. And then being able to apply some changes to this type of data to really measure the return on investment, both on from an economic standpoint, but certainly also on a quality of life standpoint, and on a safety standpoint, can have profound impacts for the entire country. Now, building a data-driven government, so there's 6 key areas that most governments benefit from, particularly when it comes to municipal. But you're really driving public benefit, and really we're being predictive rather than reactive. So certainly in terms of understanding what will happen 1 to 4 or 5 years down the road, so that we don't get caught up in not enough beds at a hospital, for example, or not enough desks in a school. Understanding the planning implications of this type of data can really be a positive outcome overall, even if not immediately realized. As well as making better choices, whether that's the citizens or government staff, to be able to make a more informed decision is also really crucial for using this kind of data. And really that pays a lot of interest in terms of measuring the value of things, whether it's a decision that might be very costly or maybe not costly at all, but does have major implications in terms of routes going to work, for example. Understanding the changing world around us can really understand the value of those certain decisions, and then help us learn and to make a better decision for next time, or continue down that path of the original decision if it was successful. Understanding shared infrastructure as well for multiple uses. Typically, this is looking at things like a park, for example, where it could just be a recreational park, but also an event space, for example. When you're starting to look at different types of uses and the impacts that it has on its local communities, we can start to really measure those impacts and to not just understand the quantity, but also the demographic changes of people coming to a certain region, as well as a variety of other factors depending on the data that's available at the time. And then finally, the most important on an economic standpoint is really encouraging investment instead of spending. Now, this is a pretty crucial one. Because the fact that most governments are looking at the best possible decision to make, and really the avoidance of just spending for spending's sake or competing factors, and there may be two solutions for the same problem. Really understanding the best course of action to take is again something that mobile data can really support. Now, speaking specifically about the organization that I represent, so I'm in DSpark in Sydney, Australia here. DataSpark has a local presence as well in the Philippines, varying levels of access depending on the countries that we're operating in terms of the available data that we have. We're working with our partners Globe in Philippines with the largest market share of mobile devices as well. So certainly the vast amount of data that we have within the Philippines is a really massive win for anyone that wants to take advantage of this type of data. It really leads to as highly accurate as you possibly can in terms of the available algorithms that we have in our suite. The low latency effect. So in terms of understanding things like how many people live in a city, how many people are residents that travel elsewhere, how many people are visitors that we don't want to look at residents and we only want to understand visitors. All those kinds of very big, very difficult questions to ask in a traditional sense are theoretically impossible to do in any other way. And even if you could ask every single person those types of basic questions, it would take a very, very, very long time. And people are moving creatures, and therefore getting an accurate sample is fairly difficult to be able to get a data that's useful. So in terms of using DSpark data, the low latency, we can typically get data within 5 days of the event actually happening. So it's pretty profound in terms of getting as near to real time as possible to make a very informed decision at the time that's needed. As far as privacy is concerned, so in terms of the level of details that DataSpark sees in the Philippines is really an anonymized, masked data point. So we don't know who that person is. We're looking at things like aggregation policies of minimum sample sizes. We're extrapolating those numbers as well so that we don't have a count of Globe customers, but we're looking at 100% of the Philippines population. And what we can really do there, it not only gives a bit more of a relevant view, but it also further masks the privacy so that we as a company cannot go and understand and track the individual. We're really looking at the macro view so that we can start to understand how do groups of people move from point A to point B, etc. Finally, in terms of our expertise, we're a fairly globally sourced team from pretty much all around the world. Some of the smartest people, admittedly, I've ever worked with, and certainly some of the most amazing and advanced algorithms that I've personally ever seen as well. Coming from Canada before this, it's an absolute pleasure to be able to work with quality data like this, and certainly something that can really benefit all governments that would like to take advantage of it in the Philippines. I think I'm almost at time here, but I'll go through a very high level overview of how the technology works, and then I'll show a few examples of this type of data in play. Typically, what we're looking at in the Philippines here, and again, depending on the country that we're working in, the process is slightly different. But what we see here is basically, as I mentioned, pings and connections to towers basically across the country. We clean all of that data, anonymize it, we put it through our privacy policy, and we basically use our advanced algorithms to understand that data and visualize that data so that we can grab things like where countries of origin, where home and work locations are. We can look at stay points. So where do people go for 15 minutes to an hour type scenario? So we can start to really filter out the travel through kind of data, and we can really look at who's coming to work, how many actual workers are in a vicinity, where do workers come from, what are the demographics of concert goers, for example. Any of that kind of information is available to anyone that wants to work with our consulting group. Able to look at things like trips and activity locations, etc. So what I wanted to show you just within the last few minutes here, this is one of our newest tools that we've built. This is actually a real tool that's operating now in the Philippines, which is about to be launched. In terms of the data that's powering this is coming from our back-end systems to really visualize trips and movement and counts across the entire country. We can start to look at an hour by hour or a day by day perspective of how many people are in a region, where did they come from, where did they go to. Understanding a basic level of movement pattern in a nice, easy to consume visual way is certainly something that we built this dashboard for the basic viewer of this type of information. There's much more complexity that we can get working with our consultants as well to really understand and hone in on those specific questions that you may have. But certainly an overview that's updated daily is certainly possible in a dashboard that's easy to use. Some of the work that we're doing here in Australia is really building upon that level of complexity. What you're looking at right now is our trips basically that have come to the city of Melbourne. And what we can actually do is start to look at origins and destinations so that we can start to map out the most traveled routes, as an example. This would help with things like setting up a public transit system plan. This would help with things like understanding where to market if a certain event was coming through, or even looking at it from a trip time and really understanding congestion patterns and understanding things like where the most traveled routes, etc. All of this understanding is important to the various stakeholders, depending on which area of the city that you're working with. But certainly we can create custom slices of data like this and visualize it in an animated way or give you a static report as well, so that you can really consume this and support any of your decisions that you have coming up. One final slide here is really looking at our work that we had with the City of Gold Coast. They are using our API here in Australia. It's not quite as available in Philippines yet, but certainly what they were able to do is, as I mentioned at the beginning, value what tourism means to their economy. Really looking at what happened during COVID and the lost economic revenue was extremely difficult to be able to prove. And then understanding how to regain that market share, if you will, of tourism, both from the new tourism model, which is domestic tourism and not international. They're starting to be able to build plans and react to this in a timely fashion that before this was impossible. They mentioned on a WebEx that we did a few weeks ago with them that one of the major wins that they were looking at from this was understanding and quantifying the day trips going into their specific city, which amounted to about 400,000 people that they had no idea about. They had never counted them on surveys. They had no idea how much economic value that was to their city. This is really a target market for them now to be able to say, can we extend those visits so that it has more economic benefit for the residents of Gold Coast. You're looking at things like international visitation, where the most visited areas are, how the impacts on transit, etc. All of that is possible with this type of technology, and we're very excited to be able to explore that with you. If anyone has any needs to do that, feel free to reach out to info@dsanalytics.com. Or go to our website at dsanalytics.com, and one of our team members will help you out with any of your questions. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate everyone's time. Back to you.
Thank you, Kevin. Great, a very rich discussion about data. I think the most important thing that I picked up from what you said is, it's important to learn what patterns emerge from the data so that you can prove or disprove, and ultimately make better choices and measure value, right? So it's really not, sometimes we just end up spending, and expenditure becomes the sole metric, which is wrong. It should be the value creation, right? So thank you for your presentation. Please stay here on screen, and we're going to bring out the other three panelists so that we can have our open forum, our panel discussion now. We have some interesting questions already gathered. So we'll have our admin, our Zoom admin folks bring up our other speakers. So welcome back to Christoph, Danielle, and James. So welcome back, guys, to the screen and to the panel. How are you all doing?
Good, thank you.
Good to hear you and have your audio and video back. Yes, thank you. I see Daniel must have been quite busy. So many questions online for you, and thanks for answering the stuff in Q&A. Speaking of questions, we still have about more than 300 people, I believe, online. We do reserve the time for some mayors. We did have 12 of them at the start of the webinar. We'd like to ask our Zoom admin to unmute them. Perhaps they'd like to raise their hand or ask a question directly to our panelists. And then we'll go to the other questions we have listed or reserved for the panel discussion. So with the help of our admin, can we please get some feedback on who's still online with our mayor guests? Or if some of the participants would like to raise their hand and be brave enough to ask the questions in person, right? But perhaps while we are waiting for that, I would like to mention one of the questions here from the Q&A box. First is this is from an anonymous participant. It goes, as we are seeing across the globe, technology alone won't fix problems. We still must address the root cause, and with data and information, we could better assess and determine solutions for it. Okay, very well said. It's great that there are people in the panel providing solutions for this. What we need to do is collaborate and connect them with the local governments. So the question is, and I address it to everybody here, our four panelists, did anyone in the panel work with the city in doing this initiative? So and if not, hopefully a local city, but if not, perhaps a city in general. Can somebody take that question, please? I know, Kevin, you have two examples. You have the Bacolod, Gold Coast, and Melbourne, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I can start with that. So as far as collaborating, I mean, it is one piece of the entire puzzle. With industry and government working together, especially with data joining that together, I think it is essential to be able to action quite a lot of the information. I guess the biggest challenge from my side is we have the answers and what has happened in terms of the situation, but in order to effect change, something has to be done about that. So it really is a strong partnership that's needed from all from citizens and from industry and government to be able to affect change and to really then measure what the impact of that was. I think that's crucial from being able to have benefits from all of the panelists as well, and including construction, real estate, and data as well.
Correct. I know James has been in the industry, in the GIS industry for more than 20 years. James, maybe you can knock off a few examples on projects you've done that involve data and the problem solving for cities.
Yeah, so definitely in the setup of intelligent city or smart city, a lot of the cities already have started off, but I wouldn't really say that they've achieved all those pillars already. But the thing there is, I can't really also at liberty to say where they are. But
Okay.
I would say that
Anonymous.
some already has implemented like the 3D models and even implementing land use with all those patterns, both for analyzing the historical data and also moving forward to the future of the land use or the land use of the city. And some are also going into that level wherein it's not just about locating the buildings, but also maintaining the information about the parcels and the improvements or the or the properties within the building. So it actually helps them in the real assessment of all those properties within the city, and also it's in the collection of in their collection. So in terms of revenues within the city, it really helps them.
So may drill down pa siya into the properties within properties. No?
Yeah. So the good thing here is wherever we are in terms of starting off with the GIS, moving towards in an intelligent city or a smart city, they're already there. What I mean is, of course, the goal is to be more efficient in collecting this data, maintaining all these analysis and trends, and eventually that helps in the decision-making process.
So we have actually, let me ask the same question to Danielle, particularly on her project in Rodriguez, on how that's going and how you're using the data for the community planning. And then perhaps bounce that same question to Christoph on how all of these data helps boost up or prop up the pillars, right? The six pillars that we mentioned on how the real estate industry is in the center of all of that. So Danielle, please tell us about what's happening with the Rodriguez project or similar projects, and at the same time maybe hit some of the questions you've answered on Q&A.
Yeah, sure. So again, the site in Rizal itself, we're still in the early stage of this community. So everything, we haven't gone through the actual mapping phase yet. So the first portion is really talking with the the community leaders. So and not December, but next year in January, we're actually going to be sitting down with all of the officers, as well as the, I guess there would be officers that they have different committees. So specifically, they have an environmental committee who would be the ones focused on the mapping section. So the key issue for us was identifying who would be responsible for that. And during this stage in January, we're going to be making sure to understand what skills they have, what type of tools they have. So example for cell phones, if we need to be able to provide that, or if they have their own devices, and how much can they learn also. So again, we're really focused right now on more of the early stage and trying to understand what's available for the community at the moment. Right. So you guys could reach out to me again, and I'd be happy to continue on with the progress of what we're going through for next year.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing your contact details with the many people who have asked for it. I asked now, Christoph, on there's a query about if is the 6-pillar model that you mentioned being adopted or in local government, and perhaps your reflections on how data enables or builds or props up the 6 pillars that you mentioned on the opportunity set for real estate.
I'm not aware that in the Philippines there is anyone or any government or any private even for the same who have implemented the 6 pillars. I mean, the 6 pillars are almost, they could be independent and interrelated. Our company in some other market, and it is a mixture of mature economy. I mean, we have several projects in US where we do advise cities or agglomeration on planning, and I saw lots of questions on smart city, future city living, etc. We have 1 or 2 projects in Asia. It's early days because, I mean, if you take the real estate in the Philippines, and it's a general comment, we are still in a phase of creating capacity for a underserving demand. The supply is still below the demand if you take residential. Now, office is in a different stand because of the pandemic, but logistic and industrial, logistic, everybody's looking for warehousing, which means I think it has to be taken as a holistic approach. I personally am very happy if I can advise one of my clients to build green, or at least advise, and he would listen and implement partially. Like I saw a comment on rain collection, which whatever is contributing to the green building, to the eco-healing, to the preservation is a step forward. I mean, I was a trustee member of the Philippine Green Building Council, and I know that some cities in the Philippines are really pushing the agenda to ensure that nothing gets built without a minimum of green content, whatever it is. Particularly one city, not necessarily in Metro Manila, who has even issued a city decree that no construction should be without a green certification of some sort, commercial construction. So these are all the good steps. I think, and some of the panelists already mentioned, it is a cooperation, it is a collaboration. Ultimately, we will all come to the same table because the synergy and the end game is to improve the human experience in any form. And I'm a great believer. The journey has started. The pandemic, unfortunately, has demonstrated some acute shortage in this journey. But you know what? We know about it. We can do something about it. And this is where the importance of the 6 pillar is to put it out there, and let's have more people embracing this 6 pillar, which by no means is exhausted. There's a lot has been research written the past few months on the human experience, which I think is at the core of the real estate and in general of what we should be doing with the data.
Thank you, Christophe. And good that you mentioned the topic of green development, because we've just brought in our friend, architect June Palafox, into the discussion. He's spoken, you must know him, everybody knows Architect June. I've had him in some of our past forums before. Architect June, how are you doing today?
Just fine, sir. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you. Where's your
Thank you for sharing. Of course, Christophe is there. We're together in the Philippine Green Building Council.
There you are. Hello, sir.
Senate hearing chaired by Manny Pacquiao for Public Works. And I told them, all this build, the green infrastructure is not enough. We should also have green infrastructure. And look at our parks and open spaces in Metro Manila. Even local governments are reclassifying the land uses of parks and open spaces into buildable areas. If the LGUs, they're more into real estate tax increase. And the private developers, some of them, not all of them, maybe just motivated by profit, never mind the environment, never mind traffic, never mind the people. So I think we're like preaching to the choir. This initiative may want to champion and re-educate some of our leaders, both from government and private sector. And also our business planning professions. It's all highest and best use financially, just the financial bottom line. There's no bottom line for the environment and social equity. So it's all like we talk about it, but we don't walk the talk. It's all we talk about inclusivity, but look at our zoning, exclusivity, exclude the poor, exclude the middle class. Even our job centers like Makati Central Business District, Ortigas, and Fort Bonifacio, the employees there are priced out of the housing stock. So I've been saying that we have OFWs, overseas workers in the Philippines, because they are 6 hours away from their homes, 6 hours away because of traffic from their families. So I hope this pandemic, and I told that to Senate a while ago, this crisis could be God-given or natural. It gives us the opportunity to borrow the best practices in the world and unlearn our mistakes. So it may be God and nature giving us the opportunity to correct the mistakes of man. So this is green infrastructure, maybe it's for the private sector. Gray infrastructure, the build. And I told the Senate, instead of the build back better, I think we should do build back better, verde, green. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share.
And thanks for joining our webinar. It's good to see you again. We have a few more minutes. I'd like to give last opportunity if there's a mayor or a city official there who would like to raise their hand at this point, ask a few questions. Pambihira to get the opportunity to have this panel of speakers, resource people together. So if you can raise your hand, do so now. And then I'm gonna give, let's run in reverse order for final words on today's topic. And perhaps there's one thing I'd like to ask for everyone to answer. If there is a low-hanging fruit in terms of data and in creating better or more intelligent cities, what would it be? No? If you could touch on that. One low-hanging fruit lang from everyone. So we'll do in reverse order. We'll start with Kevin. And then final words, a few points, and the low-hanging fruit, please.
Understanding the visitor economy is essential to understanding economic recovery, both from an international view, but also domestic view. Understanding the movement of people and what that really means for each community that has new movement to it is really, really crucial in terms of how we build out our new economy. Understanding those micro markets now so that we can understand and predict new GDP is essential, and using data to prove that is going to be the key to that.
Thank you, Kevin. Understanding people movement. Next, it's James.
Yeah. So using what's already available in terms of data and actually applications. So we don't have to jump into the more advanced ones, or people are saying about concerns about budget and all, but we can actually start small and scale up from there. So it's basically it. Yeah.
Thank you. So using what data we already have, no? Next, Danielle.
Yeah, so James kind of took the words out of my mouth, but I totally agree with understanding what's already available in terms of data. But I also like to touch on Christoph when he was talking about a holistic approach. You know, it's not just one organization or one person who could help with data. It kind of, or even sustainable communities. It's a very holistic approach where we have to get everyone involved in the picture.
Good, thank you. Involving more or everybody, equity, I suppose, inclusivity. Thank you, Danielle. And finally, Christoph, your final points and the low-hanging fruit.
For me, I mean, I'm in real estate, and I'm a real estate advisor. I think back to the data, Internet of Things, make use as much as possible of data awareness to demonstrate to the people who build that it's not more expensive to build green. It's not an easy task because this is a question that every developer will ask me and say, well, it's going to cost me more and I will not get the rent benefit. I think the question is, if you build green, again, doesn't need to be a LEED Platinum or a 5-star, a start, the obsolescence of the investment will be slower, which means ultimately the building will live longer, but also you will be able to tell the people you want in your building either to buy the office, buy residential, to lease, to work, to play, restaurant, retail, that you have thought about the human factor. And I think for me, this is the focus. And the low-hanging fruit is this doesn't need a macro governmental plan. This is at local level. It could be a small building, a big building, a township. At every level of the real estate, it can be implemented.
Thank you, Christophe. I think that final comment brings a smile on the face of architect June Palafox, who's still in the call. Now, and I wholeheartedly thank everybody who's been part of this panel. It's excellent, great content from everybody. Before we end the call, I'd like to remind you that please, the participants, there is a survey at the end of this webinar. Please do take the time to answer that survey. And if you require a certificate of participation, there's a link that you can click one of those questions and you can get that. So you see the QR code is there. You can take a photo of that and leads into our webinar. But before the person who's going to say goodbye and close this webinar is Bill Luz. He is the chairman of Livable Cities Philippines. This is our 9th and final webinar. And this project was made possible by Bill and the folks who work with us at the Livable Cities Philippines. So closing remarks by Bill Luz. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Livable Cities Lab presented by Livable Cities Philippines and the League of Cities of the Philippines in partnership with the French Chamber of Commerce and Globe Telecom. So Bill, on to you for the closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Sui, and good afternoon, everybody. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank our speakers this afternoon, James, Danielle, and Christophe, and of course Sui, our moderator today, for such an interesting discussion on cities. And I think every time we get into big or small discussions on intelligent cities, it sparks a lot of interest. It creates a lot of it generates a lot of viewpoints as to what we should be, how do we define intelligent cities. And I think different people have kind of different pictures of how they imagine what their livable city would be like. And uh, I like to think that from all this diversity of views, we're able to move towards a common picture uh, of what we all would like among livable cities and intelligent cities in the Philippines. What is clear is that the interest level is extremely high, and that we are all after creating livable spaces, intelligent cities, cities where we all want to live or to work or to play or to visit or to invest in. And I think that's important. And I go back to kind of our philosophical roots behind why we created the Livable Cities project. Uh, it was because we felt that to build national competitiveness, we really need to start from local building blocks. It was really local livability, local competitiveness, local sustainability put together that would make a competitive and sustainable and resilient country. And we still believe that. The second is that for the Philippines, a country as large as ours, 109 million people and thousands of islands, that we needed to build many cities, um, not just a few metropolitan areas, but actually many slightly smaller cities, so that we can diversify our growth, uh, spread out investment opportunities, job creating opportunities, wealth creating opportunities, and create a middle class and inclusive growth across more parts of the country. And there are 146 cities in the Philippines. And so we think that, we should try to focus on the cities outside of Metro Manila that would kind of build out to become very livable cities. And ideally, it would be great to see 30, 40, 50 such good cities across the country, because we view these cities as the engines, as economic engines, and the country needs more economic engines. So this year's been a challenging year for all of us, for all of you, and we're happy to have put together this program, which has drawn so much interest and such a great and large audience every time we ran the Livable Cities Labs. And this is our ninth and the last one for this year. We've learned a lot ourselves, and we know for sure that we want to continue next year towards the end of January and start a new series of 9 Livable Cities Labs. But aside from the 9 Livable Cities Labs, next year we're going to produce 4 or 5 local labs. And these local labs will focus on a specific province or even city or region if we need a larger area, where we're not going to, we're going to allow a province or a city to really uh, present itself, what it's doing. That it allows an audience to get into a deep dive into what's going on in that area. So we look forward to carrying this on next year. And I want to close by thanking our partners this year. Our principal partners have been the League of Cities of the Philippines and Globe Business, no, from Globe Telecom, and ourselves. The three of us have really worked hard to organize the series. We've had a great number of speakers. Uh, we also would like to welcome a new partner for this particular lab today. This is the first time we've done it with a chamber, and we're happy to do it with the French chamber. Uh, as a partner for the first time. And I notice now that other groups are stepping forward and want to be a partner, whether for a single meeting or for a season, what we call a season or a series. So we welcome that, because we think that in order to build many great cities in the Philippines, we're going to need many partners, and we've been lucky in Livable Cities to be able to draw great partnerships. So we're going to continue to work on expanding the network of people, of organizations, of enterprises, of academic institutions, of government agencies, of LGUs, who all aspire to create better, more livable cities in the country. So, on behalf of the team, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. I'd also like to thank the mayors. There have been many mayors who joined on a regular basis, and I noticed some mayors have joined 8 or 9 of the labs, and that's great, because I mean it tells us of the great interest they have in learning more about how to build livable cities. And I think the technologies and the thoughts and the insights that you gave today will help people think through what potential solutions are out there. We hope to keep together into next year, because this won't be the last time we'll be discussing livable cities, but we do look forward to becoming partners and continuing this great partnership next year. So thank you very much, and everybody enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
A better future is built by the brave, envisioned by brilliant minds, born from the passions of thousands strong. One that isn't without risk, but protected from it. Safe from all the worries and secure for what's to come. Because a better future with the greatest empires, the strongest communities, and the happiest families will always be worth having. That's why the bold and the fearless understand that recreating something better takes courage and strength. So together, let's start shaping a better future today. Recreate a braver tomorrow.